I am the 5th generation, and my parents are still involved quite a bit, and my 2 sisters run the dairy. I pretty much run all the cropping and harvesting and planting and any crop management decisions. Most of our soil type here is silt loam, a little bit of clay, maybe about 15–20% clay, and then the remaining is loamy, silt loam, some sand. In years past, we did a lot of conventional till, and it took a lot of manpower to run all the equipment in the spring and pick the stones and get everything planted. It was kind of tough. It was probably 5 to 7 guys. And now today, looking back from 5 years ago, today it's down to about 3 guys to be able to run about 3,000 acres to do all the planting and the harvesting. We still need some part-time guys for the seasonal work, but for a majority of it, we really cut down on labor. Brent Peterson came to me, and he's the one that got me started with this. He started with just small things, no-tilling corn into alfalfa stands, an old alfalfa stand, which was easy because we already had the equipment to do it. So we started with that, and then after a few years, he started getting me a little more in depth and throwing some ideas out there with no-tilling soybeans into rye and rolling the rye down and terminating it that way. And it's really progressed here in the last 4 or 5 years. I pretty much am strictly no-till cover crops. Planting green is where we're at today. I started cover cropping and no-tilling because of lack of manpower, for one thing. I started seeing a lot of soil erosion, and so I seen some benefits with planting some rye covers in the fall. Some big things that I started noticing, water holding capacity. When we're harvesting corn here in the fall, the fields are very firm. We can get trucks in, and we don't have to cart a whole lot. And so, considering in the past it was just a muddy mess, and today with not working that soil structure is a lot better, and everything just seems to carry much better when we're harvesting. At about the time of V2 or V3, I came in with an interseeder, and what it does is it's got 2 seeding rows that get planted in between each row of corn. I planted red clover. I tried some red clover and some crimson clover together, and some red clover and hairy vetch at about a 8 to 10 pound rate. So the intention here, once this corn silage crop comes off, I will no-till some winter rye in with the clovers that are here, and then next spring we will harvest it all as heifer feed. And then after that harvest, I will come back in and no-till corn back in to where the standing clovers are, so that that corn can utilize whatever's left of that nitrogen that's left from the alfalfa crop. A big thing that I do as well is after our wheat harvest comes off, we'll put manure on at that time right after the wheat harvest, and then plant a legume cover crop, which is heavy legume, and to try and use some of that nutrients from the manure. It'll take up that nutrients from the manure, and then the next spring we'll no-till green corn into that standing cover crop. And the plan is that we won't have to add any added nitrogen at side dress time. We'll just put on our starter. Whatever fertilizer is needed at the time of planting, we'll put at that time, and hopefully with the green cover crop breaking down and feeding back to the corn, that will allow us to save on nitrogen costs, to not have to reapply nitrogen later in the season. So the advantage with cover crops is we can apply manure at multiple times a year. So in the springtime, if we take some of that rye off as forage, sometimes we'll come in with a manure application after that, and then no-till corn on top of that. Or after the wheat is off, we'll apply some manure at that time. And then also in the fall, once the corn silage starts coming off, our early planted corn that comes off first, we'll plant a couple hundred acres of winter rye immediately after the corn comes off, and then apply manure later in the season. And then the remaining late harvested corn acres, we'll put manure on first, followed by winter rye. So it's kind of just start with one, end with the other. The company that we use for manure application has a low disturbance applicator called the Bazooka Farm Star, and it does a very good job of basically creating a slit in the ground and then dropping the manure into that slit and then closing it back up. And if done in good conditions in the fall with this manure, low disturbance manure applicator in the fall, if it's done in good conditions in the fall, most likely in the springtime you can plant right into that without working the ground. So this past year I started working with Fox Demo Farms with a pilot mentorship program, and what it is I help local farmers that want to start with no-till and cover crops, and we meet a couple times a year and go over their crop plan and sit down with their agronomist, figure out what works best for their farm and see what they can do to get started.